The ocean is a big place. To call it vast undersells it dramatically. And throughout all of human history, hundreds of ships, filled with people and thousands of stories, have sailed out into its unreachable horizon and never returned. Today, we are sailing back out into the ocean, towards that very same untouchable horizon, and covering more stories of ships lost at sea. We've covered many on this channel, but there are plenty more to tell. Today, we'll be focusing on the little known, little remembered, and in some cases, very obscure missing ships from throughout history. Some of these stories will be a little on the short side, but all are worth telling, ones you've probably never heard before, and I hope you enjoy them. And one of these stories is so unsettling that it almost sounds supernatural. But it wasn't. It really happened. Let's get right to it. If you enjoyed the video, then please like and subscribe so that I know you did and you want to see more like it. And check out my whole series on missing ships. I'll link them below. Okay, let's get right to it and start with the SS Lord Spencer, a ship that is all but forgotten, but was maybe involved in the disappearance of a second ship as well. Here is her story. Also known as the SS Java, then the SS Zealand, then the Electric, and then finally the Lord Spencer, she was a Cunard Line vessel built in Glasgow and launched in June 1865. She was powered by steam, but as you can see from the picture, was also propelled by her sails. You see, the Lord Spencer existed in what I've come to call the hybrid phase of ships, a time period in the transition from sail to steam power, which resulted in some very unique-looking vessels. At this time, ships relied on both sources for propulsion. The Lord Spencer and other vessels like her needed the ability to use their sails in case their mechanical engines failed, which happened all the time back then. The liner could comfortably carry passengers within her accommodations, and her maiden voyage under the name SS Java took her from Liverpool to Queenstown, and then finally to New York, where she triumphantly and safely arrived. Becoming known as the Lord Spencer in 1892, she enjoyed many long crossings throughout her roughly 30-year career, and I'm sure she was loved by many passengers who sailed upon her. But her fate was to be mysterious, and a tragic one, and one shrouded in many unanswered questions. During a voyage in 1895, the Lord Spencer went missing while traveling her route around South America from San Francisco to New York. No one knows what truly happened to the ship, but I'll tell you the most popular theory. Picture yourself standing on the deck of a three-masted vessel on a foggy night. All is calm, quiet, until a massive, multi-masted liner comes out of the dark mist silently like a ghost, looming over you and drawing nearer, and smashes into you. This is no sailor's horror story of a haunted ghost ship running you down. This is real life. The ship you are on is the Prince Oscar, and this horror movie-type scene really occurred on a night out at sea. The Prince Oscar was a fully rigged transport sailing ship built in 1865 like the Lord Spencer. On the night of the 13th of July, 1895, after enjoying a 30-year career, she was lost in a nighttime collision with an unknown four-masted ship in the South Atlantic Ocean. The two ships sank in 10 minutes, the other vessel sinking so fast that the Prince Oscar survivors didn't even get a real glimpse of her at all, gone as suddenly as she appeared. All on board the mystery ship were lost. She went down so fast no one on the Prince Oscar could get a good look at her to identify her or maybe see her name. And the survivors of the Prince Oscar were picked up after 3 days floating in the open lifeboats following the sinking. Back then, ships had no wireless sets, so they couldn't have called for help even if there had been time to do so. Though many believe the Lord Spencer was the ship that collided with the Prince Oscar, we will never know. But many believe this is the case and the cause for the Lord Spencer's loss. A few other ships have been proposed as candidates for this mysterious ghostly ship that came out of the fog like a monster as well, such as the Lord Downshire and the Holt Hill. Tell me if you think the mystery ship was indeed the Lord Spencer or not. Personally, I think it's very likely since she vanished around the time the collision occurred. Another theory is that the Lord Spencer sank while rounding Cape Horn, but this isn't as popular of a proposal. Today, the Lord Spencer does not enjoy the legacy of a liner like the Titanic. She is all but forgotten entirely, as are the stories which played out on her in that final voyage. Her wreck rests somewhere on the bottom of the ocean, undiscovered to this day, and that will likely never change. But I wish it would. I find this story so fascinating, and I would love definitive answers on it, but likely that will never come to pass. The true fate of the Lord Spencer will likely never be confirmed, and her wreck will remain forgotten and abandoned deep below the surface with those who were in her care at the time they were lost. I feel the only way the wreck will be found is if it is happened upon by pure chance. Okay, this is a ship I've indirectly mentioned before, but it was requested I cover it, so let's actually hear her story. For this one, let's jump forward in time 85 years to 1980. This is the story of the MV Derbyshire. Built in 1976, the MV Derbyshire was 294 meters long and weighed 91,655 gross registered tons. She was a British bulk oil combination carrier. Say it 5 times fast, I dare ya. That entered service in June 1976, around 6 months after she was launched in December 1975. She would spend 2 years of her 4-year service laid up. The Derbyshire was huge. Godzilla would have trouble sinking this ship. She could carry 160,000 tons of cargo. Of course, there were larger vessels. The Knock Nevis, I believe the largest ship ever built, was 485 meters long, which is 1,500 feet, and weighed 260,941 gross registered tons. So, while the Derbyshire was huge, she was far from the largest ship ever built. The MV Derbyshire left for what would be her final voyage on July 11, 1980. She left Quebec, Canada, for her destination in Okinawa, Japan. Her route would take her down across the Atlantic, around the southern tip of Africa, and then back up towards Japan. She would sink on September 10, 1980, and when she failed to reach her destination on September 15th, a search was launched but was called off on September 20th, 1980. All that was found was an oil slick. No sign of the ship, her 42 crew members, or the 2 passengers who were on board were located. All were lost with the ship. Whatever happened so fast that there wasn't even time to send a distress call. 6 weeks after the Derbyshire sank, one of her lifeboats was sighted by a Japanese tanker, floating alone and empty in the open ocean. So what happened? Well, let's cover the theories. A popular one is that the ship was lost in a typhoon, and with hindsight, with what was learned later, this is essentially correct. A government investigation at the time also supported this, believing that the ship had hove to in Typhoon Orchid, 230 miles from Okinawa. The tropical storm became so severe that the Derbyshire was either struck or rolled over by a rogue wave, or had her hatch covers blown off and filled with water, and then rapidly sank. Reminds me of the fate the El Faro suffered. And there are other theories, but that was always the most popular one. Another one suggests that a design fault due to a misalignment of the bulkheads opened several cracks in the ship's hull and caused her to take on water and eventually go down. But since there was no distress signal, this doesn't really make sense. And again, with hindsight, we know that that's not what happened. But even just ignoring what we learned later, the idea of cracks opening in the hull and the ship, flooding and sinking, but there being no distress signal, that doesn't really make sense when the idea of a rogue wave suddenly hitting the ship is also on the table. Now, there is more to the story. In 1994, a search for the wreck was launched. They found the shipwreck and used ROVs to survey her. They found that a hatch on the forward deck had not been secured. They found that since the hatch wasn't sealed, the forward section took on water in the storm, and the ship suffered sudden structural failure in her forward section once the flooding became too much. However, an investigation of the wreck in 2000 absolved the crew of some of the carelessness that was pointed at them in 1994. This investigation found that there was significant damage to the forward vents. With the vents out of service, the ship began to flood and go down by the head. Once the hatch covers became submerged in the water, they failed, and the holds flooded. Multiple cargo holds quickly flooded, and the ship sank. This explanation for the sinking appears to be the one that is most agreed upon today. A bronze plaque was placed on the wreck as a memorial to those lost. Indeed, they can be properly mourned by family because, for once in this series, we have answers. We have found the ship. The MV Derbyshire has been found, though she was missing for a time. She has been found. We know what happened. And now that they have been found, let's hope that she and her crew can rest in peace. The 20th anniversary of the sinking was marked with a memorial service at Liverpool. Deputy Prime Minister John Prescott was among those in attendance. In 2018, a permanent monument to the lost was erected in the garden at the Church of Our Lady and St. Nicholas in Liverpool. Today, the MV Derbyshire remains the largest British vessel to be lost at sea. Okay, now we're going back in time again. This story is much closer to the disappearance of the Lord Spencer than it is to the sinking of the Derbyshire. This is the story of the Florence. I had never heard of this story until recently, and I knew right away I wanted to share it. The Florence was an American clipper, a type of 19th century merchant sailing vessel built specifically for speed. She was built in 1877, and her job was to transport goods from California to cities on the Atlantic coast. She was launched in October 1877 and began her career on the 20th of April 1878 when she left New York bound for San Francisco. She arrived on August 4th, and this completed her maiden voyage after 106 days at sea. This was her job for the next several decades. This speedy little ship would run raw trade goods from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast and vice versa. By the 1890s, this type of work began to drop in demand. There were simply faster ways, and suddenly ships like the Florence were left without a purpose. However, the Florence had a new career waiting her. After a brief idle from work, this speedy girl was bought by the California Shipping Company to carry lumber from the Pacific Northwest to Honolulu. The Florence now had a new route, a new challenge: brave the vast Pacific Ocean. And she would, until her story reached its mysterious end. The ship vanished with all hands in 1902 and was never, and has never, been seen since. A fruitful career over, just like that. One of her life preservers was found a year later, but no other traces of the ship or her crew have ever been found. Most believe the Florence was lost somewhere just off the coast of Washington due to bad weather, likely a sudden gale. In all these videos, we have not talked about a single ship that vanished in the Gulf of Mexico. And you know what? Let's change that. Ships have gone missing there too, and let's talk about one. We're zooming ahead now to the 1960s for this one and talking about the SS Marine Sulphur Queen. Formerly known as the Esso New Haven, she was a T2 tanker converted to carry, get this, molten sulfur. Who could have guessed? She had a steam system running through her that kept the molten sulfur at 255 degrees Fahrenheit or 123 degrees Celsius. The ship was launched in 1944 and began her final voyage on February 2nd, 1963, after a very long career at sea. The Queen left port in Beaumont, Texas with a cargo of sulfur weighing 15,260 tons. On February 4th, while she was somewhere off the southern coast of Florida, a radio message was sent by one of the ship's crew. Nothing was wrong, the message was ordinary, and the ship's position was given as 25 degrees, 45 minutes north, 86 degrees, 0 minutes west, putting her well off the coast, but almost directly west of Naples, Florida. Nothing more was heard, and the Marine Sulphur Queen was listed as missing when she failed to arrive in port as scheduled. A search of the Straits of Florida, the area the ship was believed to have gone down in, was launched but called off after 19 days. Only some debris and life preservers were found, but no traces of the ship or any of her 39 crew were. The theory was that she sank in a bad storm. The sea at the time was known to be rough, with waves reaching 16 feet high. The Coast Guard investigation also found that other things were wrong with the ship, any one of which should have kept her in port. Among the many, one of the most important of these was the incidents, yes, multiple, of fire breaking out beneath and along the sides of the 4 large sulfur tanks. One former crew member revealed that these fires were so common that the crew of the Sulphur Queen had simply given up on setting off the alarm when they occurred. Caked on layers of sulfur was also found in spaces below the tanks due to the many cracks in the ship's structure. The Marine Sulphur Queen was also a type of ship known for having a, quote, weak back. This was another factor the Coast Guard took notice of. The ship was, in all honesty, likely to split in half, likely near midships due to corrosion, and it had happened on several T2 tankers before. Another former crew member testified that the corrosion was everywhere. Other things that were revealed to be wrong included inoperable temperature gauges, a ruptured steam coil, and worn packing around the screws. The Marine Sulphur Queen was scheduled for a dry dock inspection in 1963, but her owners had postponed it. The ship was in such a bad state that right before her final voyage, the wife of one crewman called her a floating garbage can. With all that covered, and all the factors in consideration, like her dry dock inspection being postponed by her owners, this tragedy was completely avoidable, and it's unfortunate that the Marine Sulphur Queen's crew had to pay that price with their lives. The Coast Guard suggested in their investigation that the cause for the loss could have been any one of multiple possibilities, such as there being an explosion in the cargo tanks, a complete failure of the vessel's hull, which may have resulted in it breaking in two, capsized because of the weather, or that a steam explosion may have occurred as a result of rapid filling of the void space with water. Either way, the Marine Sulphur Queen vanished at sea, and as far as I know, her wreck has never been found. In all likelihood, she might not even be in one piece. Like with the USS Cyclops, a ship we covered earlier in this series, the story of the Marine Sulphur Queen has been used by many to promote theories about the Bermuda Triangle, even though this one's loss wasn't so very mysterious. It sounds like this old girl was just about to fall apart and collapse. But nonetheless, conspiracy theorists use this incident as one of many to justify their beliefs into the Bermuda Triangle legends. USS Lynx, a 6-gun Baltimore clipper-rigged schooner, was built for the United States Navy in 1814, with her planned job being part of one of 2 raiding squadrons being built by President James Madison's administration's plan to establish a more effective navy. A navy that would not only be capable of breaking the ongoing British Navy blockade, remember this is the War of 1812, but also causing havoc on British merchant marine trading. The Lynx began her commission in 1815, sailing from Boston and arriving at the northern African coast about a month after leaving. The ship returned to the United States in 1817 and eventually found herself stationed in the Gulf of Mexico to patrol and operate along the southern U.S. coast. In 1819, she captured 2 separate pirate vessels in the Gulf, and 11 days later captured a third as well. In 1820, she departed St. Mary's, Georgia, bound for Kingston, Jamaica. Upon her arrival, she would continue to hunt and capture pirates, but she never made it. Somewhere along that voyage, for reasons completely unknown, the ship utterly vanished. No traces of her or her 47 crew members have ever been found, and it's likely that this is never going to change. The cause for the loss is completely unknown, and there are no real theories. Perhaps multiple pirates attacked her and turned the tables on her, or she sank in a storm. No one knows. But the fact is, something happened along that voyage, and the ship, along with her crew, were never heard from again. We're going the furthest back into history we've gone yet in this video for this one, and talking about another early US Navy ship. In fact, this ship was part of the Continental Navy, the Navy that was the Navy for the 13 colonies in the American Revolutionary War, before the US gained its independence from Britain. The USS Saratoga was thus one of the earliest Navy ships in US history. She was a sloop, and the first ship named to honor the Battle of Saratoga, fought in 1777. There have been many named as such since. The first USS Saratoga was launched in 1780 and lost at sea the next year in 1781, in a situation that almost sounds supernatural. This straight up sounds like a ghost ship story or something. This is the story of the USS Saratoga and her unsettling disappearance. First, a little about the ship. The Saratoga was 58 feet long and had a beam of 25 feet. The ship's service began as a diplomatic escort, escorting the packet Mercury, which was sailing for Europe carrying Henry Lawrence, the former president of the Continental Congress, who was planning to seek money from the European continent to finance the fledgling American government. Eventually things went wrong and the Mercury had to carry on alone, and she was captured by the British off Newfoundland. Afterward, the USS Saratoga remained off Delaware, east of the shipping lanes, until her captain had her ready for a fight. Spotting an unknown ship, she pursued, and 2 hours later was near to what turned out to be the brig HMS Keppel. Saratoga opened fire at the British ship, and for 3 hours the two vessels fired at each other. But due to the unfavorable winds, neither could get an advantage over the other, and the skirmish eventually ended when the Saratoga headed for home shortly after midnight. Neither ship suffered any serious damage. The ship later went on to capture several enemy vessels, and eventually a new crew came aboard to replace the ones who had left to man the ships they'd captured as prizes. After this happened, the ship continued its job and captured yet more ships. By March 1871, the Saratoga found herself as part of a small fleet escort in Cape Francis, alongside French warships and Continental warships. They were to escort the waiting 29 heavily loaded merchant ships who were waiting at the harbor for their guard to arrive. The convoy joined and left Cape Francis on March 15, 1781. 3 days later, unknown sails were spotted in the distance, and the Saratoga broke off to pursue these unknown ships. She caught one of the fleeing ships by mid-afternoon, and they surrendered without a fight. Saratoga's captain, Captain Young, placed an American crew on board the prize ship and immediately set off to chase the other fleeing vessel. The captured ship attempted to keep up as the Saratoga sped off into the horizon ahead, when suddenly a wind that grew to a fearful gale arose, and the captured vessel nearly capsized from the velocity of the intense winds. Midshipman Penfield, commanding the captured ship, managed to get her under control and looked up, only to see the Saratoga was gone. Just like that. She vanished. So quickly, it was like she was plucked out of reality itself. Saratoga vanished without a trace, along with her entire crew. This is a weird one. How did it happen so fast? How did not one person see it? This one just happened so fast, it's scary, and it sounds like an episode out of The Twilight Zone or some supernatural trap where the second ship wasn't even real and it was luring the Saratoga like a siren. It's a proper ghost ship story. It's creepy. Whatever happened to the Saratoga had to have happened quickly, but that exact thing is unknown. Despite all her victories and prizes, she vanished into the sea. It's not much of a fitting end. To this day, the cause for the sudden loss remains a mystery, and her wreck, or what might be left of it, has never been found. The ship was officially declared lost at sea with all hands drowned on March 18th, 1781. You have to wonder, if she hadn't left the convoy and remained in service, what her fate would have been, and what happened. Because, man, this one almost does sound supernatural. The way she was just gone so fast. The way the wind came out of nowhere and then went away just like that, taking the Saratoga with it. Just creepy. Ghost ship story, definitely. Definitely could also fit into the Twilight Zone. Talk about a bit of unsettling history. Okay, full disclosure, this one is cheating. This ship didn't vanish at sea, probably. It just vanished from history. You'll see what I mean. The records of this ship just abruptly end. This is cheating, 100%, I admit it. But I thought it was interesting. But since it's cheating, I'm going to get through this one fast. Just like this ship was. The Hurricane was a large, extreme clipper. A type of clipper designed to sacrifice cargo capacity for speed, with a bow lengthened above the water and a sharpened forward body. The Hurricane herself was built in Hoboken, New Jersey in 1851 and has been described as the most intense extreme clipper ever built, apparently earning that Hurricane name. She was fast, getting up to a speed of 18 knots. Okay, yeah, that's really fast for the time. The ship could make the San Francisco-New York trip in 100 days, even with poor wind conditions slowing her down. Had the wind held up, she might have claimed the record for the fastest trip from New York to San Francisco at the time. But it wasn't meant to be. Nonetheless, she had a very speedy and fruitful career. But in the interest of not boring you all, I won't list all the places she went. Let's just say that she really got around. Until 1857, anyway. You see, around this time, she ended up laid up with no work due to an economic depression. Labor-intense vessels like the Hurricane struggled in this time. In 1858, the Hurricane was placed back into commission service in the hopes that she could attract a buyer. On January 8, 1859, she departed San Francisco with Ichabod Sherman in command. The Hurricane, ironically, experienced very poor weather on this voyage, but made the trip safely in 143 days of passage. She then sailed for Singapore, where she sold to the equivalent today of $977,000 in U.S. money. She's mentioned here and there afterward, but most of her career from this point is unknown. And then in the 1870s, she simply vanished from all records. And that's it. The Hurricane is never mentioned again in recorded history, not even in shipping registries. Whatever fate ultimately befell her, be it a long and fruitful career with her new owners, or a tragic end somewhere, we'll never know. She sailed so fast, history's writers couldn't keep up with her, and in the end, it seems history has lost what her fate ultimately was. Her last mention in a shipping registry was in 1876, and after that, she vanished from all records like a ghost, and no one knows what ultimately became of her. Whatever her final fate was, it is unclear to this day. Okay, that wraps up this installment of Ships That Vanished at Sea. You know, we've covered so many in the series, but man, the Saratoga really got to me. That one was just unsettling. That it happened so fast when she was in plain view of another ship, and then just gone? You see what I mean when I said it almost sounds like something supernatural happened? Like she sailed right out of reality? It's crazy. Again, it really does sound like an episode you'd see on the Twilight Zone. Just imagine that. A captured ship, trying to keep up with the Saratoga. Suddenly, the wind picks up, and when the wind passes, the Saratoga is just gone, like she was never there. So creepy. I get the chills just thinking about that. Well, with these stories told, we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed and found these interesting. One thing I enjoy about this series a lot as it goes along is learning about these very obscure missing ships that aren't widely remembered. The earlier episodes had more well-known ones, but now that we've covered them, we're getting into the really obscure and weird stories. Tell me, which of these stories was your favorite? For me, it's a tie between the USS Saratoga and the Lord Spencer. And tell me, if any of these ships could be found again, which would you like to see found the most and why? For me, it would probably be the Lord Spencer. I know it's just a ship, a hunk of metal and wood. They have personality and feel alive, the same way that like an abandoned building feels, and I think it would be right to find one that has been nearly forgotten for so long. It's human nature to feel that way to some inanimate things, but you get what I mean, right? She is something once loved that now no one remembers. She's probably lonely wherever she is. It would be fitting to find her. It almost feels like you can give the ships themselves, and maybe those who were with them when they went down, peace if you find them. But that's my pick. Tell me yours. Also, like and subscribe if you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more like it so that I know you do. Now, before I go, here are some quick announcements, so if you don't want to see those, feel free to go. Thank you for watching. The next video will possibly be the secret project I mentioned in Obscure Mysteries Volume 2. Possibly, because it depends on how the schedules work out. If I have time, one more will come before, but either way, it will be a remastered and updated version of my documentary into the disappearance of the SS Waratah. I think that video could be improved, and with the anniversary of her disappearance approaching, it's the perfect time. I've refined the script, added some details that I left out of the original, and have overall improved it. But along with the Waratah remaster, we're going to keep these mysteries coming. I've decided to delay the Hadean Eon video for now, probably till August. You all like the mysteries, so I want to give you plenty to enjoy throughout this month first, and then it'll be time to finally cover the formation of the planet where all these mysteries take place. Can't wait to share that story with you all, and more to come, and I hope to see you all there. As for the next video, not the Waratah, the next original, I think you're going to really enjoy that one. I've got a fun topic and fun mysteries to cover, and it's something I've not done before. But for now, I'll leave you in suspense as to what it could be. Again, real-life schedules will determine which of these two projects comes first. So until then, have a good one, everyone. Thank you for watching.